And welcome back, rugby fans, to Rugby411. As always, I'm your host. My name is Joshua Shibata. And before I start this video off properly, I want to just give a little preface. I am filming this right now. It is Tuesday. And just within the last 24 hours, a lot of things have happened, not only in the world of rugby, but in the world in general. So, first of all, my prayers and thoughts go out to the areas of Russia, Japan, and Hawaii. Obviously, as a lot of you know, I do have family in Japan, and I do have a few friends that live in Hawaii that are currently being evacuated as we speak. If you did not know, there was a huge 8.8 magnitude earthquake that struck off the coast of Russia. And earlier today on Tuesday, the ramifications, of course, are about tsunamis. Japan, obviously, if you don't know, about more than a decade ago was hit by a very, very dangerous and devastating tsunami in Fukushima that wiped out quite a few lives, hundreds of couple of thousands of lives, if I remember correctly. Very, very devastating. So right now, the people of Hawaii are being evacuated to higher ground. They are going to be hit by quite big tsunamis. So, of course, prayers go out to them. And from what I understand, at least in Japan right now, they're not being hit as badly. The West Coast, where I live, is also going to be hit by some pretty big waves. Fortunately, I do not live too close to the shore. Hopefully, we won't be hit by waves as bad as Hawaii. Hawaii is going to be hit by some pretty huge tsunamis. So again, prayers and thoughts go out to them. So more than likely, you will not see this video until later on during the day of Wednesday, which hopefully things will have turned out for the better. But again, hearts and prayers go out to the people that live in those areas because it is pretty scary right now and pretty devastating. Now, going back to the rugby. So I'm making this video because you guys, for the history that I've been doing this channel, the video that seems to gain the most traction is on future expansions of Major League Rugby. I have a prior video. I haven't done video like this in a while, but my prior video, which was done a couple years ago, again, is one of my most engaged videos because for whatever reason, you guys love to see where there are potentially possible future sites for Major League Rugby franchises. Oddly enough, I was thinking about doing this video because of a news article that I read recently. And in that article, the talk was that there was talk that Major League Rugby is still thinking, obviously, about expansion. And that quite possibly in the future, and it sounded like the immediate future, didn't say exactly a timeline, but the hope was that Major League Rugby, which currently right now, last 24 hours, was sitting at 11 teams, has never expanded further than 13 teams. And the thought was, though, that they would go up to 20 teams. Now, with the thought of those 20 teams, that there were areas that were going to be hitting the Midwest, East Coast, and quite possibly Northern California, which I'll get back to in a second. Now, with that being said, this article was about maybe 2 weeks ago, so a little bit after the USA and England match. Now, within the last 24 hours, unfortunately, and news hasn't officially broke, there has been no official word on it, but the rumors are almost pretty much confirmed. NOLA Gold, unfortunately, will be closing their doors this off-season. So, sadly, that leaves our Major League Rugby at 10 teams. Again, this is now, I think, the third year in a row where we've lost a franchise during the offseason. Last year, it was the shocking closing of the Dallas Jackals, one of the newer franchises. Now, the NOLA Gold, which is one of the older franchises, has closed their doors. Again, hasn't been confirmed, but rumor and talk is that it's pretty much a done deal, sadly. which is, again, has befuddled quite a few internet pundits for Major League Rugby, because there's a lot of talk of recently by the New Orleans staff of the increase of attendance, the increase of their footprint in the community in New Orleans for rugby, and the possibility of moving to a stadium of their own. They're at the Gold Mine, which was a baseball stadium at one point. So yes, if you look at the NOLA games, the stadium never looked filled. It looked like a very, very big stadium, and the capacity never seemed to have been filled up. NOLA also, too, had a pretty dismal season. So you can definitely see the reasoning why, but there does seem like there was a lot of steps moving forward. Again, talk of them moving to their own stadium, which of course would cut the overhead costs of having to rent out a stadium. So just like with the Dallas Jackals closure, this one kind of took a lot of people by surprise, including yours truly. Again, I was planning on doing this video before that announcement ever made, but that definitely changes things up a little bit. So, with that being said, we are currently, as I mentioned, sitting on 10 teams. I honestly feel reaching 20 seems kind of a long shot, especially within the immediate future. Right now, according to Wikipedia, the creation of a franchise, and this I believe is old data, of a Major League franchise about $4 million. I believe that has changed quite a bit. But that's not necessarily chump change per se to start a franchise, but also at the same time, it is a shaky investment. So I feel, and also too, I feel the negative of some young leagues is to expand too quickly. I especially look at, I used to be a big fan, and this is going off on a little tangent, I used to be a big fan of arena football, which some of you have never heard of before, some of you might have been fans of, but Arena Football League was starting to grow somewhat in the early 2000s, or the early aughts, as they like to say. I was a huge fan. We had a team here in LA Extreme, played in the Staples Center, which is now no longer called Staples Center, it's called Crypto, but I was a big fan. In 1 year, Arena Football grew from, I believe it was 12 to like 18 leagues. Like literally in 1 year, they grew 6 franchises. The following year after that, they lost all 6 of those. And then it just kind of went down from there. I do believe it's still around Arena Football, but I feel it is more of a centralized Midwest thing, not a global or not a countrywide thing like it was trying to be. So I feel the detriment for some leagues is to grow too quickly. And I think going from 10 to 20 is a big jump. So in this exercise, basically what I'm trying to say is not to focus on doing 20, but to go maybe a little bit less and just do 16. So what I'm doing here with future Major League Rugby expansions is to think about and there's 10 teams in the league right now, 5 on the East, 5 on the West, to think of logical spots where we'll have 3 new franchises per side, 6 new total. And the caveat was to try not to retread, meaning even though yours truly, LA, is a retread of the old franchise, the LA Guiltinis, now RFCLA, I don't want to go back to New York. I don't want to go back to Colorado, as tempting as it seems, because first of all, it seems a little lazy logic. Also, too, they worked at one point and then they didn't. Now, granted, again, LA proved that you can restart a franchise in an old area, albeit with closing a franchise in another area to grow it back in LA. But I don't want to do that. I want to try to focus on new areas, new opportunities, and explain the logic why. So that is what we're going to do here. Again, comments, let me know, where do you feel new franchises should grow? Where would you like them to grow? And don't be afraid, if you want to retread, that's completely fine. For this exercise, I kind of challenge myself to not do that. So with that being said, West and East, 3 teams per conference. Let's start with the West. And there you see, so we have the San Francisco, San Jose, that's what SF and FJ stand for, Bay Area, so basically Northern California, Arizona, and then Mexico. And I'll get to Mexico in just a second. But let's start with the Bay Area. So the funny thing is, there was reports earlier on, right at the end of the season, of supposedly, and this I've seen the advertisement. It was a very odd looking advertisement, but it was asking about players with rugby experience that would like to go to San Francisco for a potential position with a Major League Rugby franchise. Now, the thing is, it didn't necessarily say that the franchise would be in San Francisco. It just said with a, though they were targeting the San Francisco area. Now, the funny thing was, further and further research into this, Major League Rugby made no acknowledgement of it, and word is they had no connection with this advertisement. And oddly enough, as quickly as it popped up, it disappeared. I don't even have a copy of it to show you guys, but it floated somewhere around the internet. Now, the funny thing is, in that article that I read, that I basically wanted me to do this video, they specifically, and I'm talking about the CEO of Major League Rugby, specifically targeted Northern California in those expansion efforts. So, makes one think that there is talk of possibly starting a franchise in Northern California. How far along are they? Are they far along enough to warrant a start next year? That I don't know. But it makes sense, and that's why it's on the list. Makes sense because, first of all, Northern California has a huge rugby culture and community. Look no further than Cal Berkeley. Cal Berkeley is one of the dominant colleges in rugby. They've won multiple national titles. Also, they produced quite a few great talent, including Sam Walsh, who is a former LA RFCLA player, a USA Eagles Sevens player, as well as now currently working with the Chicago Hounds. They also do have a WER team, which is the Women's Elite Rugby, the Women's Pro Rugby League, the Bay Breakers. And so I feel there is potential, especially with the WER, which I feel Major League Rugby should try to create some sort of synergy between WER and Major League Rugby, women's and men's. Why not? Why not have them share stadiums? Why not have them use their connections to fill each other's schedules and fill each other's home games, you know? So the WER, the Bay Breakers play in the Great Bowl Stadium, which is actually located in Lodi, California, which is a little further away east from San Francisco, but it's in the Bay Area in general. It's a 3,500-seater stadium, so small enough to not have a huge overhead, in my opinion, but not too large that you can't sell it out. RFCLA, we played in UCLA Annenberg Stadium. It's about 2,000, 3,000 seat stadium. By the end of our season, we were pretty much filling that place up. So it isn't impossible to fill a 3,500 seat stadium for a new franchise in Major League Rugby. I feel that San Francisco is a great place to start. And then you can obviously grow from there. PayPal Park, which is where the San Francisco 49ers play, 18,000 seat. I feel you can definitely grow a franchise in the San Francisco area. So that's why I chose there. Now, second, Arizona. Arizona is an interesting place, Phoenix in particular. So media markets for sports are huge. You want a sports team to be in your major media markets, meaning not just TV, but just media in general, all forms, social media, printed media, the big areas where you get the most attention and the most money. According to stationindex.com, the top 6 cities in the United States for the media markets, actually, let's just focus on the top 5. Number 1 is New York, which we did have a franchise there. Number 2 is LA, which we currently have one. Number 3 is Chicago. Number 5 is Dallas, where we used to unfortunately have one. We lost. Number 4, I'll get to in just a second. But number 6, the San Francisco area. Number 8 is Phoenix, Arizona. So Phoenix is kind of up there, you know. A huge market. And it's a big sports city. They have a lot of sports teams. They have the Diamondbacks. They have the Phoenix Suns, the basketball team. They used to have a hockey team. Why not have a rugby team? Right now, the places where I'm kind of been focusing on where one would play or put a Phoenix team is GCU, Grand Canyon University. Their club sports team is a rugby team, and that's the Antelopes. They play in the GCU stadium, which is 7,000 seater. Also, too, the smallest soccer stadium that I could find there, the Phoenix Rising Football Club Stadium, which is a USL football team, 10,000 stadium in Chandler, Arizona, which isn't too far from Phoenix, Arizona. So, if you look at the map, Arizona, right underneath Utah, right next to California. When we get to Mexico, not too far from the Mexico border. So Arizona, for a Western Conference team, sits right there. And it's a pretty convenient place for Western teams to travel to. So travel isn't too very far. And I feel Arizona would be a great place to play. Now, Arizona does get very hot, so weather-wise may not be the most agreeable, but if you start early enough in the year, February, March, yeah, not so bad. Later on, May, June, that's going to get really, really testy because Phoenix can get blazing hot, triple-degree weather. That would be the only negative of having a team in Arizona. But other than that, I think Arizona would be a great place to put a Major League Rugby franchise. Now, last pick, Mexico. So, reason why I picked Mexico is, and we'll talk about this next, is that I feel that Major League Rugby has the opportunity to not only expand rugby in the United States, but with their borders in the north and in the south. Mexican rugby is still relatively new, but have the potential to grow pretty rapidly. And I feel that if you can grow a team, a Mexican team, and have the opportunity to compete in a federation or league like Major League Rugby, it will improve not only Mexico's rugby, but also will help grow U.S. rugby as well. And will give a lot of players opportunities on both continents to really grow as well. Mexican rugby, if people don't realize, just started being ranked by World Rugby in 2012. So a little bit over 10 years that they've been around in World Rugby, and they've now been sitting at the highest they've ever been ranked at 37th, which isn't too shabby for a team that is far below Tier 1 and maybe even Tier 2. Don't really have the opportunity to compete for Rugby World Cup positioning, but again, have the opportunity here if they can somehow work with Major League Rugby to really grow their product. The place I was thinking of playing them is technically going to be more Mexico City, the capital of Mexico, which isn't really Western Mexico. It's more actually right underneath Texas, a little bit closer to New Orleans, so maybe more in the eastern place. But, hey, just to make the numbers even, we'll have Mexico as a Western Conference team. Currently, the national Mexican team, the Los Serpientes, the Serpents, they compete in the Estadio Olímpico Universitario, which is in Mexico City. It's a huge stadium, 69,000. Now, I don't know the logistics of playing there, but who knows? Mexico is very, very sports friendly. Obviously, if you watch any of their football or soccer, I mean, they sell those things out like crazy. There's a potential, if rugby gets as popular as that, they can fit a 69,000 stadium. And that'd be huge for Major League Rugby as well. So, again, I feel if they can get a team from Mexico, I think that'd be huge for Major League Rugby, as well as for Mexican rugby. And then it leads to our Eastern Conference teams. And I know I didn't say Willis Retread, but this is the one where I cheat just a little bit. Canada obviously should be a choice. Philadelphia and Minnesota are the other two locations for the Eastern Conference. So let's talk about Canada. Obviously, when the Toronto Arrows were disbanded, that was a huge blow to Major League Rugby, also to Canadian rugby as well. Now, a lot of Canadian players have found homes in other teams. A lot of people like to joke that the New England Free Jacks is pretty much Toronto Lights. But I feel Canada obviously can grow quite a bit with their brand of rugby if they had their players have a chance to compete on a consistent level with Major League Rugby with a Canadian team. As we know, Canadian rugby has been struggling quite a bit. They lost their last 2 matches to Belgium and Spain. Spain one, though, was very, very close. They have not been the same, almost similar to USA Rugby, since not qualifying for the 2019 Rugby World Cup. With that being said, I'm sorry, the 2023 Rugby World Cup. With that being said, I feel, again, the only way to make it right is to restart a Canadian franchise. Not necessarily in Toronto. I was actually thinking more Vancouver, but of course Vancouver would be then the West. So maybe you can flip-flop the 2 teams if you want to. Canada would actually be the Western representative, with Vancouver, Mexico City being more Eastern, as I mentioned, if you look at the map. But either way, I think having a Canadian team back in Major League Rugby would make a lot of sense. But, of course, it faces some struggles because the first franchise ended up being defunct. Vancouver is beautiful. Maybe it might benefit a little bit more. There's a little bit more money possibly in Vancouver. But, again, I don't know how the logistics would work, but I feel having a Canadian franchise back in Major League Rugby would be huge for everybody. Similar to having a Mexico one as well. Now, Philadelphia. Let's go back to that list from stationindex.com. From stationindex.com, I mentioned before, top 5 media markets: New York, LA, Chicago, Dallas. Number 4, Philadelphia. So Philadelphia, I feel, would be a pretty great place to have a team. Obviously, I would think having one back in New York would be great, but like I said, you can't retread in this little exercise we're doing. So Philadelphia, I feel, would kind of hit that East Coast itch that Major League Rugby is missing with New York. Also, too, Philadelphia, a huge sports city. I mean, you have the Eagles, you have the Philadelphia Phillies baseball team. It's obviously a great place for. You have the Flyers. You have technically Pittsburgh right in the same place. I'm thinking more Philadelphia and the Pennsylvania area rather than the Pittsburgh area. But either one would work, in my opinion. But Philadelphia, I feel, would be more closer to that New York area and hit that kind of market. New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia. So, I think that would be a great place to put a Major League Rugby team. The best stadium that I can find for soccer that would maybe meet our qualifications is the McCary Stadium on the campus of LaSalle University. 7,500-seater, a little bit big, but still, I think you can grow into that. So Philadelphia, I think, would be a great spot for a Major League Rugby team. And now Minnesota. That one, it was actually a toss-up between Minnesota and something in maybe the Ohio area, Cleveland, Cincinnati. But I decided to do Minnesota just because the Cleveland area I felt was a little too close to Chicago. Minnesota kind of has their own spot middle of America. And also, too, Minnesota is a huge sports state as well. You have the Vikings, you have the Timberwolves, you have the Wild, the hockey team. So you have a lot of big sports teams, and it's a big sports community there. Also, too, we talked about that synergy. WER has a team in Minnesota, the TC Geminis. They actually play in the TCO Performance Center, which is the Minnesota Vikings Performance Center, their practice stadium, which holds 6,000. If you ever watch the WER games, the TC Gemini games, that TCO Performance Center is beautiful. Be a great, great place to have a Major League Rugby team. And again, share with the TC Gemini, create that synergy. I think it would benefit both sides. 6,000 stadium is a little big, but again, you can kind of grow on that. And I feel Minnesota would be, again, a great place to kind of grow a franchise. And as in an area that's kind of by itself, so it's not really competing too much with other franchises like Chicago. And then maybe like Philadelphia if we start one there. So that's where I feel franchises could possibly grow. Again, this is just adding 6 more teams to bring it to 16. To bring it to 20 means 4 more teams. I don't know where those franchises would go. Obviously, other choices that I would pick, obviously would love to have New York come back. I think you definitely need to have another Texas team because Texas, again, is a huge media market. Dallas is the number 5. It'd be great to have Dallas back again. Florida is also a big market. I think you can have 2 teams in Florida. Problem is, again, the retreading thing is always going to be a factor because I know investors, if they saw that it didn't work the first time, why would it work a second time? So I know it'd be difficult. I do feel 20 teams is kind of a stretch. I kind of don't know how you get to 20 teams eh, before even, say, the 2031 Rugby World Cup here in America. I think if we get to 20 by that point, that would be amazing. But I don't see that happening. 16 maybe. It's not out of impossible, but 20, I think that's asking a lot in the immediate future. But right now, I feel, especially with, unfortunately, the loss of Nola Gold, I think right now stability is going to be key. Obviously, if we can try to at least get through a couple years without losing a franchise, that'd be great. But we need to find a little stability first before we start to grow too much. But it is fun, like you guys know, when you guys always watch this video, to see where we could possibly grow some future franchises. So these are my thoughts for future franchises for Major League Rugby. Again, let me know what you think and why you think certain cities would be a great host for Major League Rugby. I know a lot of you guys loved this exercise when I did the video last time. I'm sure you guys will love it this time. But that's basically it. So again, thank you very much as always for supporting my video. Thank you very much for watching. Again, prayers and thoughts goes out to Hawaii, Japan, and all the other affected areas with the tsunami. I do pray and hope that the devastation is minimal. Always thinking of you guys. But yeah, as always, thank you very much for checking out my videos, and I'll see you guys on the pitch.